Dan, what would you say is the new role of the cyber citizen in journalism nowadays?
There are many different roles that people are able to play now because of democratizing the media, meaning that anyone can create media and that anyone can have access to what other people create. That presents opportunities at many levels, including for the journalist to bring the citizens into the journalism process, which I hope traditional journalists will do more than they have in the past. That gives people the opportunity to create their own media, but to have conversations with each other and with journalists, to compete with journalists, to cooperate, and to, I hope, create a more diverse ecosystem for journalism so that we all have better information.
Do you think civil journalism might be used as a tool to end with traditional mass media monopoly? Or is it just a new form of empowerment?
I certainly hope that and I don't know if it's been a monopoly as much as an oligopoly, but a few players, big players, based on an economic and technology model of manufacturing where the barrier to entry was very high. The barrier to entry now is very low. So again, I don't want to see the end of traditional media. I think we need what big media do and do well. I hope that we have, again, more diversity and that will help us have better information. So it's part complementary, part competitive, and we'll see in the end how this all works out. I'm not nearly smart enough to tell you exactly what it will look like.
In the near future, what do you think is going to happen with the traditional mass media? Well, I mean, we're talking about in 20 years' time, 30 years' time.
The main problem for traditional media today is not a journalistic question, it's a business question. Because the business model for the big media is challenged by the same technology that makes the citizen media possible. So it's competition for, in part, the advertising, which has been a big supporter of journalism in the past, but new competitors in advertising are doing a better job for the advertisers and at a much lower cost than the traditional media have done. That's a big problem.
An economic problem, though.
It's a very serious one, and it's a more serious immediate problem than the journalistic competition, which I would expect to be a valuable problem to have. I think journalists do well when they compete. So the more competitive the market is for the journalism, the happier I am. But I'm quite concerned that we're going to lose some valuable things in the meantime while the business model issue is sorted out.
What tips would you give to those people that are starting to work with 3.0 journalism?
Well, a number of things. The first is that I would say experiment, take risks, try many different things. The cost of experimentation in digital media is close to zero. It takes almost no money to try new things. That means that we can expect a huge variety of experiments, most of which will fail. But so what? That's good. That failure will lead to community value in the long run, because if a very large number of people try things, even if most of them fail, the ones that are left that succeed will still be a significant number. So that's wonderful. But people who are thinking about being citizen journalists, who are wanting to play a role that's beyond the blogging and other things that are the equivalent of writing a letter home, if it's journalistic in nature, I think people need to understand some important things, including the principles that go into journalism, such as accuracy, thoroughness, fairness, independence, and very importantly in this new world, transparency. If one has a bias, a motive for what one is doing, it's important to tell the reader, the listener, the viewer, that there is this stake in the outcome. So I'm anxious to see that we have a higher level of media literacy for both the reader and the creator. And I think when we do that and work with each other to find the good information, then we're going to have quite a wonderful new world of media.
How can the traditional mass media incorporate civil journalism? What are the keys?
Traditional media need to work with citizens, with their audiences, to bring them into the journalism process at many levels. One is very simple, which is to ask them to comment on what they're doing, to have a conversation, not just a lecture as we've had in the past. It can go much deeper than that, though. The traditional media should recognize that the audience knows more than the journalists about everything. Collectively, the audience knows more. It doesn't mean that they're more expert as journalists, it just means that they have more knowledge collectively, and that knowledge can be valuable to the journalism if they just ask. So that's two things. Another is to think more broadly and narrowly about topics, to think of very, very local kinds of information that the journalists don't have time for or staff to cover, as well as narrow topics, communities of interest, where people in the audience may have a lot to say about certain things. And then they have to help the audience know what the difference is between what the professionals do and what the citizens do, and to encourage, again, this level of media literacy that helps people start off with being skeptical about everything, but not equally skeptical about everything. To do some homework, some research, and to understand that there's a little more now expected of the audience in this new world that we're entering, but that when the audience starts participating and starts doing some of its own journalism with, I hope, the traditional media in part, that we'll all end up with better information in the end.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.